Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fall to Rise podcast. I'm your host, James Brown. Today is a very, very, very special episode for me. I'm interviewing my friend, my brother, and now new author, Joseph Hogue III. What's up, my brother?
What's going on, brother? How's it going, man? It's been a while since I've been on your show, but I appreciate you taking the time, man, of having me on, man. It's an honor, it's a pleasure. I thank you for taking the time.
Well, thank you. It's actually my honor to have this new author coming on the show for what I believe you said is your first interview to talk about your new book.
Yeah, this is my first verbal interview. I've done some author interviews, written interviews overseas with some bloggers in India. So this is my first domestic interview. So this is gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely. So you released a book recently, I believe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the title of your book is, I'm trying to make sure that I say it correctly, 18. Mm-hmm. An 18-month journey. As God spoke, I wrote.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that title?
It's so funny, man. I was writing, and kind of a little backstory on the book. I was going, when I first started this journey of writing a book that I didn't know I was writing, first and foremost. I always used to say growing up, James, we know each other since the 5th grade. And writing and reading wasn't my strong suit. You know, I was always a math and science guy. And I remember, kind of looking on Facebook and, I was looking at other people's, writing quotes and posting other people's quotes. And I was like, man, how do they come up with this type of stuff? And so in 2017, on December the 13th, 2017, I fell asleep at night, just like a normal night. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and what happened was I heard the voice of God speaking to me in the middle of the night. He was just talking to me about trusting the process. Now, in that time, in March of 2017, I began my abstinence journey, standing from sex, marriage. I committed my life to Christ, and I really wanted a deeper relationship with him, and understanding the importance of abstaining from sex was something that I decided to do. And so what I began to do is, I was walking this journey. It's very difficult. It still is a challenge. A lot of times when I'm interviewing, people are thinking that, hey, this is easy. No, it comes with these challenges, right? And so that particular night on December the 13th, morning hours of December the 14th, 2017, which happened to be my grandmother on my mom's side, her 82nd birthday, trust the process came to my mind. Trust the process. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna definitely trust this process, but I don't know how it's gonna end up. I'm gonna trust. I'm gonna trust in the Lord that he's going to be able to allow for me to make it through this process. And so I went to sleep, and then I woke up the next morning, and usually I scroll through Facebook, and the word trust the process came again. And I just wrote it and I posted it. That was my very first post, and that's the very first entry post in the book. And so I began to post these entries on a daily basis. And as I posted them, not only was it helping me during my own spiritual journey, it also helped other people as well. And so I still to this day write posts from time to time, but this particular part of the journey, it was almost on a consistent basis, like it was every single day. And so the Lord placed it on my heart to write the book and also add scripture to add some context to the post, where it's not just my idea. It's an idea that's inspired by God, but it's also backed by scripture. So in the book, it's literally an encyclopedia of my journey during 18 months, but it's a journey that I encourage the readers to take as well.
Wow. Now, you say that you woke up, you hear the voice of God, and God is telling you to trust the process.
Yeah.
First off, what's your thought process? What are you thinking? You're thinking, okay, I'm hearing something talking to me, telling me, trust this process.
Yeah.
What's going on in your mind at this point?
So during that time in December of that year, so I'm 9 months in an abstinence journey. Life is going up and down and all around. I'm trying to learn the ropes of this new life. And to be honest with you, it's difficult. And a lot of the times when we're in a process of any part, it's hard for us to see outside of the process because we're still in it. And so what the challenge was there was I had been praying for some things, like, I've been praying like, Lord, this is getting really difficult for me. You know, at that time, I'm still looking at pornography. I'm still masturbating. I'm still struggling with those things, and I'm relying on my own strength to do that. And so
Okay.
it took for me to really talk to the Lord and say, Lord, I for real, this is getting difficult to where I'm almost wanting to stop doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So that was his encouragement to me to keep going and trust the
Mm-hmm.
process that he has for me.
So you hear trust the process. After that, do these ideas or biblical quotes, do they come to you the same way? Is it the type
It's
of thing where
funny.
it's just popping up?
Yeah, yeah. So like starting off, it just came to me, and if you notice, when the first post, from the first post to the second post, there's a period of time. So
Mm-hmm.
during that time frame, it was just me kind of really understanding what really happened. I just posted one time, and so
Sure.
it was usually about a two. It was like a 2 week break in between that,
Mm-hmm.
and after that, the posts just began to come, and as they came, I would just
Mm-hmm.
post them out, post them out, post them out, and
Mm-hmm.
lo and behold, I had 974 of them that have entered the book. And
Wow.
so it was just literally, again, the way that it was just not only helping myself during my preparation process for ministry, it was
Mm-hmm.
also helping other people. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm just doing this so I can get likes, or I'm doing this just so I can get some notoriety. No, it was
Mm-hmm.
literally helping people. And one of the interesting things was that the posts were also being reposted from people I didn't even know. So it was
Mm-hmm.
people that were finding it, I guess, on Facebook, being able to search for it publicly. They were
Mm-hmm.
also being impacted by it. And then also it's being
Wow.
translated into other languages. So it's
Oh,
not
wow.
just English. I saw my post translated in Spanish. And so it's, again,
Wow.
it's a testament to the power of God when we walk in obedience to what he's wanting us to do. And
Mm-hmm.
that walk is not a walk of perfection, it's a walk of
Mm-hmm.
progression. And so he just wants us to continue to walk in obedience to what he's calling us to do.
Wow. Wow. So you get these quotes, you're posting them, people are responding to them, people are being inspired by them.
Mm-hmm.
How does that turn into a book? What makes you say, you know what, I need to turn this into a book?
That's a really good question, man. And
Mm-hmm.
again, as I was going through it, obviously the
Mm-hmm.
book was not in the plan from day one. The book
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even in the plan until uh, I would say around like August 2019, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started kind of thinking about it, I was like, because this is impacting people, and on Facebook and on Instagram, I was also posting these posts on there as well. It
Mm-hmm.
takes a long time for you to go back. Just to give reference, on my at Mr. Relationship 704, I got like over
Mm-hmm.
6,000 posts. So I'm like,
Oh, wow.
why not compile this in a concentrated area where everybody can still have access to those same posts that impacted them at the end of 2017 all the way to the middle of 2019? Have it in a
Mm-hmm.
centralized location, and then also give them an index to where, okay, they wanted to talk about, or they wanted to hear about relationships. They can flip to this particular part of the book,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can use it as a reference. So for me, man, it was something, that a thought that came to my mind, and I thought that it would be really impactful to be able to have it to where somebody can benefit from it being in one location instead of having to search all through all the other posts that I've done since the end of this book until now. So I thought that it would make the most sense to have it in a concentrated area like a book.
Now, have you ever written a book before?
Never in my life, and never in my life would I ever thought that I would have ever written a book. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have the proof copy right here, but it's
Mm-hmm.
literally, now it has not for resale here, but it doesn't look like
Mm-hmm.
this, like what James showed. But it's a
Mm-hmm.
thick book. Like, look at it.
Sure.
It's literally a thick book. It's 391 pages for
Mm-hmm.
this book, and it's literally every single post that God inspired me to write, and
Mm-hmm.
it goes across various different areas, from relationships to integrity to purpose. It's filled with a lot, and I find myself, as I look through it, I'm like, man, it's still a blessing to me as I read it to this day.
Sure, sure. Wow. So you're writing the book. Well, you come up with the idea of writing the book.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's got to be time consuming. How did you balance writing that book with going about your normal life, whether it be working, going to the gym, handling your ministry, giving relationship advice? How did you balance that time?
I had to set a schedule. At first,
Okay.
So what took the longest part of it was I should have actually had it over in this section or this area where I'm sitting, but I
Mm-hmm.
actually wrote it out physically first. So that
Oof.
way I can have it as a keepsake. You know, if I,
Mm-hmm.
you know, children's will be able to see that Joseph Hogue III, if whether there's a fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh, they can
Mm-hmm.
see that this was a book that he wrote, and this was a book that he wrote inspired by God, regardless of if the internet ever goes away, that
Mm-hmm.
physical manuscript would be right there. So I wrote it out physically, but I set a schedule. I was setting time before I started work. And now that was difficult because that means waking up early. You know, I'm now an engaged man, but you know, I'm in a relationship, and so
Yeah.
you know, waking up, we usually begin and end our days in prayer. So you know, waking
Sure.
up, praying, and then after that, we talk for a little bit, and then after that, I'm writing it up. You know, I'm doing all that. I'm on the computer, and then after work, I was also allocating time to that. Now, the difficult part is getting your mind out of being in work mode or preparing for work and then getting
Sure.
into writing mode after that. It was
Mm-hmm.
difficult, and then being able to research the posts. Some of the posts needed some further explanation. So in the book, I expounded on those areas a little more, so that way the reader will be able to have a little better understanding of some of the posts, especially early starting out. Because again, it wasn't like I was formatting them for a book,
Mm-hmm.
some of them needed a little explanation. So I was able to do that, but it was difficult, man. It was definitely some
Mm-hmm.
ups, there's definitely some downs, but support teams, people are part of my support team like yourself, Courtney,
Mm-hmm.
who's my fiance, my family,
Mm-hmm.
my parents, my siblings, other extended family members. They really supported me, man. And that's if I can encourage anybody, you have to have a solid support system because some of the times you're going to want to give up in this book writing process, but a
Mm-hmm.
support system makes it all the more easier.
Definitely. Now you said that you had to get up early. We've known each other for a long time. I don't think either one of us are morning people. Uh,
No.
uh, I can actually remember times where we called each other early in the morning saying something wrong. It's before 7. Like, what's wrong? So, what time did you have to get up on average to start writing your book?
Usually I was up before 7 o'clock. I was up before
Wow.
7 o'clock, and I was in here right where I'm seated now. Well, actually on the opposite end of this table, and I was
Mm-hmm.
typing while I'm writing. Like when I was writing the physical copy of it, which I have. And yeah, it was challenging. Like you said, I'm not a morning person, so I already have
Mm-hmm.
at the time I had a 9 to 5 job, so I had to schedule this extracurricular work, if you will, outside of
Mm-hmm.
that and outside of all the other things that I'm involved in as well. So it was challenging, man. Very challenging from physical, mental, and even
Mm-hmm.
spiritually. I feel like it stretched me as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, is at what point did you say, you know what, I need to dedicate my life to this? I need to dedicate my time to this. I have to go all in. Uh, I'm going to have to leave my job to even make this happen. First off, what made you make that decision? That's got to be scary. You've got to uh, be worried about, taking care of yourself, paying your bills,
Mm-hmm.
having health care. It's hard, especially for people, young men of color like us, to even get the types of careers that we've gotten into. So, you
Mhm.
know, what made you say, you know what, I'm giving everything up. I'm going to focus on this book.
That's a really good question. The Lord had called me in the ministry over 11 years ago. I ran from it. And the reason why I ran from it is that I thought that ministry was literally one thing: preaching on
Mm-hmm.
Sunday, you got a church, you're a pastor. But
Mm-hmm.
if we look at what the word minister is in the verb form, minister is to meet a need.
Mm-hmm.
And as people that are made in the image of God, whether you believe in Him or not, we all have a duty or responsibility to meet a need in the land, whatever that may be. Yours may be this podcast, James. It may be
Sure.
somebody who has a singing ability. It may be somebody who knows how to fix cars. Everyone has a particular ability to do that. And in you doing, whether it be a 9 to 5 job or whether it be ministry like myself, how
Mm-hmm.
you uniquely have been called to be able to meet that need to serve others. And so for myself, I ran from it because I had just a one-dimensional side of it. Like, okay, you're just pastoring and preaching. I'm like, I'm not that type of person because I got my life all figured out, but at the time I really didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran from it. But the thing that I love about the Lord is that He loves us so much that He still pursues us even in our own disobedience. I ran from that for years, for years. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know how we used to roll.
Yeah.
We real rugged. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah. Yeah.
rugged, running these streets, drinking,
Yeah.
smoking, partying, all of that, chasing
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
And again, it was
Mm.
even the women I was sleeping with began to say, "You are a man of God. God has called you into ministry." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So God went from just speaking to me through uh, uh, through knowledge, just kind of just downloading it into my spirit to say,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, you've been called," and then other people begin to say it. Now you're using the people that I'm committing sins with to tell me the same thing, and I'm like, "Okay,
Mm-hmm.
is interesting." And then he began to reveal to me the fact that I'm going to have to leave my job. An elder of the church, he actually first mentioned that, who I used
Mm-hmm.
to be on an internet radio show on. And I was like, what do you mean? At the time,
Mm-hmm.
I was a trainer. I worked for Wells Fargo and their fraud investigation department. Decent paying job, good benefits, things like that. And it was stable. I was comfortable. I was creating curriculums and doing all this stuff. I thought, hey, this is what my calling is to train people, knowing nothing to knowing something. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. But then that position actually went away. And I basically took a step back into a previous role that I was in. And it's so funny that the skills that I learned as a trainer is now the
Mm-hmm.
same skills that I'm using when I'm dealing with people and being able to minister to other people. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
same way that I prepare for our monthly discussions in our ministry. So it's funny how God uses a particular snapshot of your life to prepare you for the next. But
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it began to be revealed to me through other people encouraging me, saying, yeah, you have to leave your job. Yeah, you have to leave your job. I keep hearing this over and over from different people. And then people are starting to provide me with ideas that I've been dreaming about. So I never told anybody this. And now they're like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to go out. You've got your investments, pull them out, and
Mm-hmm.
then be able to make this leap of faith because you believe you're asking people to have faith to change your ideas about how you approach relationships, how the word of God applies to that. And you're not
Mm-hmm.
even practicing what you preach. So what do you look like? What example of God are you giving them if you're not taking the leap that you're asking others to take the leap for? So I looked like a hypocrite. I was like, all right, I got to
Mm-hmm.
answer this call. I got to be able to go all in. And I'll be honest, I left my job on January the 18th of 2021. 2 weeks later, my book was already completed. It was completed. Within that 2 weeks, I was able to, tighten up some loose ends. And then I was able to get it to an editor and begin the editing process. So for anybody out there that needs some encouragement, when God has called you to do something, do it because he honors those that are faithful to him. And he's been providing ever since I left.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Now, did you ever have any doubt or any fear? Or let me change the question. Was there ever a time that you said, you know what? I'm nervous. Maybe I should go back to work. Maybe I didn't hear God right the first time. Maybe this was just a test to see what I was going to do. Did you ever have that in your life?
Absolutely, man. And it's so funny. It's a recurring feeling that it kind of comes like a wave here and there. So I
Sure,
can't say
sure.
I had it. It's something that I kind of still wrestle with from time to time, right? You always, something may pop up. You're like, wait a minute, I may not have heard it right. But it's so funny that before I took the leap, I consulted a lot of other people that actually took a leap of faith, namely their
Sure.
pastors that were, they up and moved their whole family to different states to pursue what God had called them to do. And they told me, they already prepared me ahead of time, like, there's going to be some times where you're going to question this. But keep moving forward, keep staying in community, keep having people that's going to be able to challenge you in a healthy way, being able to say, okay, you have this idea. All right, so how does that look? And be able to plan appropriately. I cannot stress enough. If you are living by faith, that still does not negate the fact that you have a plan. So you
Yeah.
can say, God told me to leave my job, but guess what? How does that look like? What are the practical steps after you leave your job? Are you leaving your job just so that way you can sit and watch TV all day? Or has he given you something specific to do? And how do you plan to walk that out? So I cannot say I can't overstate enough the importance of planning. You have to have a plan.
It's so ironic that you said that because I often hear people say, "Oh, well, God's got me." Okay, great, but what actions are you taking?
Yes, it requires your participation for sure, and that's another thing that is why it's a partnership between you and God. God is using you to do something, but he's also wanting you to do something as well by taking this step. When he called Peter out of the boat, Peter had to get out the boat and walk on the water. He didn't just pull Peter out the boat. Peter had to, okay, I'm getting out this boat. This looks ridiculous because the waves are crashing everywhere. But as long as he kept his eyes on God, he stayed afloat. And for those that are stepping out on faith, you've got to keep your eyes on God, because there's going to be people that's going to doubt you. There's going to be people that's saying, no, you don't do that. You know, there's going to be people that's going to try to make you feel fearful, you know. And so you just got to have the right people around you and be able to ignore and shake off those haters, because they'll be around, but you just got to keep moving forward and have, again, you got to have a plan. You have to be willing to take the step.
Definitely. Let's dig back into this book.
Okay.
I've been reading it for the past week and a half, give or take. And I laugh at certain points because some of the things that you posted are things that we would be talking about that day, or there may be certain things that may resonate with me. I may say, you know what, I'm going through that right now. Or, you know, I know someone else is going through that right now. I'm just, man, you know, how perfect is it that these words came through? It's almost as if some of the words that popped up in there popped up right on time, right as you needed to hear them. So with you, when you were getting these messages, was there ever a time where a message just hit you right while you were going through something where you just said, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm in pain. I'm afraid. I'm confused. If the message just boom, hit you right there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's so funny you said that sometimes, you know, was there a time where I was like, oh, it hit me? Sometimes some of these posts that I was posting, they hit me so hard, I was questioning, should I post it? I was afraid. Wow. I was like, wow, it convicted me so much. Like, man, I need to get myself right. I'm like, wait a second, this is for everybody else. You know, I was nervous. Like, wait a second. You know, and then a part of it that I began to wrestle with early on was like, what are people going to think about this one? This one is like, man, it's exposing me. I feel a little funny about it. I'm like, is it going to make somebody else feel funny about it? And then there was people that didn't agree with some of the posts that I did. And that was where the challenge really began. I was like, okay, like you said earlier, was it, oh, did I hear God wrong? Or wait a second. But as we know, you know, the word of God is sharper than any two-edged sword. So that means when the word of God comes and there's truth in it, it's going to make you feel some type of way. And it also may make others feel some type of way. But just because it makes other people feel some type of way doesn't mean that it's not true.
Yeah. Sometimes, well, it's the old saying, the truth hurts.
Truth hurts. Yeah. It hurt me though. Some of these posts, they hurt me too. So anybody who reads it, they feel some type of way. I felt some type of way as I posted them as well. But you know, it's almost like when you feed kids vegetables, you know, as kids, you gotta go, you gotta make the noises and stuff like that. Doesn't mean that it's not nutritious. The kid doesn't know the nourishment that they need. And sometimes as we walk through life, as much as we love to think that we know everything, we don't know as much as we think that we know.
Yeah, and at times I think that we need a nudge. You know, that message may have been the nudge that you or someone else needed. You know, there were certain parts of the book that I would read and I would know someone that was going through that at that exact moment, or I myself may be going through that at that exact moment. You know, with me having 2 podcasts, I come in contact with a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people, and there's people that are going through things, and I'll say, hang on, I have a quote for you. And it's something that would be just so perfect for their situation. Just these few words sums up what they're going through and gives them an answer immediately. You know, so that tells you that it's not something that's just coming from you. It's coming from something bigger than you. Because again, we've been friends for over 25 years. So we know each other. And we're honest with each other. So a lot of the things that, you know, as you said earlier, a lot of the things that you went through, I was usually right next to you.
Exactly. So you know how improbable that this is. When we stood up in class in 5th grade, we weren't saying, hey, I want to minister to people. I was like, hey, I want to be a doctor. You know what I'm saying? Like, remember when we would dress up for career day? Like, I wasn't dressed up with a Bible in my hand. You know what I'm saying? So for God to transform me, this is really a real transformation. And that's why I can't stress enough. Like, if God can do this for me and be able to provide a woman of God that I'm currently engaged to be married to, he can do it for anybody. As long as you give your life over to him, it'll happen.
Yeah, definitely. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at a couple of quotes from your book. I'm going to post them up there. And let's talk about them. Let's kind of get into what your mindset was. I may even say where my mindset was when I read it, but
okay,
let's get into a couple of them.
Let's go.
Yeah. All right. This one is interesting to me. If your body is like a bank account, how many withdrawals can a person make before you overdraft? It's so interesting because it goes back to what we said. We were living life on the edge.
Right.
We often laugh and joke about the clubs that we used to go to, and our favorite saying is, "Man, we should have died so many times."
Exactly.
It's how many times can you live that life on the edge? What were you thinking when you posted that?
This one was really, I was reading a book. It was called Every Young Man's Battle. And it was talking about how you should set boundaries if you're wanting to live a life of purity, abstaining from sex until marriage. Again, I'd never known a man, family or non-family, to ever walk this journey before I met the community that I'm connected to now, that was able to really walk that, show me what the practical steps are. Everybody's like, okay, no sex until marriage. I'm like, all right, so what does that look like? You know what I mean? Like, I need some steps. I need some step 1, step 2, step 3. And I also need you to show me, all right, in your life, what does this look like? And so it really talks in the book about the value of your seed, of sperm, and when we think about like how we used to run, James, we would spread that seed everywhere.
Yes.
And so I was thinking about the physical withdrawals, but then I was thinking also about the emotional withdrawals that I was taking. This person over here is thinking that, hey, if I give him sex, he'll get into a relationship with me. Which again, I never set that premise beforehand. Like, hey, yeah, we have sex, I'm gonna get in a relationship. But sometimes I've dealt with women who was kind of thinking that subliminally. You know what I'm saying? So then it's like, well, how many withdrawals have I made to myself? How much do I really value me if I'm spreading my seed everywhere? And so that was where my mindset was there in May of 2018. Was like, man, I began to feel kind of guilty and kind of ashamed. Like, yo, I've really been able to do this. But the good part is, going a little bit deeper into that post, is that, God is also here for those people who have fell from Him. When you fall, there's a hand that's able to help you back up. So even though you may be living a life that you think is perfect, the minute that you slip up, we do feel discouraged. But God is still able to give us a second chance if we just come to Him and say, God, I messed up last night. I shouldn't have been with XYZ. I shouldn't have been doing XYZ. There's another chance. So even though we may feel like we're in the red, there's an opportunity for us to overcome that. And we overcome that through our relationship with Jesus Christ.
And it's another way to look at it is, if you think of it, sometimes people have to go into bankruptcy. They have to lose it all to understand how to balance their money. And I think sometimes people, they're afraid of that. But if you don't do that, the consequences could be more dire.
Absolutely. And then also, for those that have lost everything, to your point, they also can tell other people, because if we really be honest, if everything went well in our lives, what kind of story would we have to tell? A lot of the times, the people that we love the most, that post the most and get the most reactions out of everything, is somebody who is teaching you something from something that they've lost. So if I never lost everything, how can I ever tell you about when you're losing everything, how you can get back everything? So you have to be able to have some losses and be able to speak to those losses and show them how they can get gains.
Definitely. There was another quote on here, and it's ironic because I was speaking to someone earlier this week about their relationships, and they had someone that just wanted to stick with them. Just they know the relationship is no good for them, and the person just didn't want to leave. And you have a quote here: "Does your need to control someone exceed your ability to let them go?" That's powerful, because there's a lot of people that are in relationships that they don't want to be in, but especially think of it as guys, the idea of our girlfriends sleeping with another guy, will make us say, you know what, I'm not letting that go. Even if the relationship is toxic, but just mentally we're saying, you know what, nope, I'm not letting another guy be with her.
Exactly.
And I think that's the same thing, with my other show, Extreme Truth. We just talked about Monday, the topic was being stuck. There's some people that are stuck because they're afraid to let go because they have to control everything.
Right.
You know, this was perfect. I mean, what were you thinking when you wrote this post?
I think about so many times that, kind of going back into the whole relationship, same vein that you were talking about, a lot of the times people feel like they have to trick a person to have them stay, like we used to say back in the day, they're selling dreams. You're telling somebody, hey, if you do X, Y, Z, if you have sex with me, then we'll have a relationship. I used to hang with how many guys we know from the old neighborhood that would do that? You know what I'm saying? And that if you had to trick them to be with them, do you really have them? Did you really have a genuine relationship? And so below that post, you can see where love has never forced anyone. And since God is love, we show love by allowing the freedom of choice. That means if a person just is willing to walk out your life, what kind of relationship did you really have with them?
Yeah.
Is it really a loss because they walked away? What can you gain from that perspective? And so for me, man, it was just me kind of really looking over my life and taking account to some of the things that I had even implemented and had been through, where a person walked away and I felt like I was less than, like I lost something from them. I really gained an experience to show, like, if they were able to walk away from something that, an argument or a disagreement of some sort, or I didn't meet something on their list preferentially, was it really a loss? It really opened the door for me to be able to get with the woman that I'm with now, who's amazing. So it was a blessing, and I didn't really see it that way. So it was forcing me in that moment to really change my perspective on how I viewed what we perceive as rejection.
Wow. Okay. So for the person that had that conversation with me, please take that to heart. It's not a problem. Sometimes you have to leave.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure they'll see this video. So here's another one. Transparency is so important. We all have stories or skeletons in the closet, dark past that we'd like to conveniently forget or hide. I'll gladly introduce you to mine so that you don't have to hear it from a third party. Ooh, especially in the social media age, this one is so big.
It's so huge because, again, when I began to start our ministry with He Said, She Said, it was a lot of me. I started on Snapchat just telling like brief little 15 seconds clips of my life story, growing up in the church and then kind of straying away from that in college and, falling again into alcohol, drinking and smoking and partying and things like that. It allowed for me, once I transformed my life and kind of came away from that, there was a lot of people, and even now, there's some people that can listen to this podcast now and say, yep, that was exactly how it was. But there's too many people out there that if I was to lie or to omit something, they'll check me and say, nah, it wasn't like that. It was like this. It wasn't 3 women, it was 8. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't 2 shots, it was the whole 5th. Like for me, the accountability for me to stand on these platforms that God has blessed me to be able to both create and also be a part of, I have to be willing to just tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. I got to be able to do that, because if I don't, I mean, there's too many times where people can just come in and say, nah, Joe's lying. That's not what it was. And so, I just be able to tell people, the wonderful works that God has done through me, through me submitting my life to Him and being able to just operate in freedom. It's freeing to be able to tell the truth. So why not tell it?
Yeah, definitely. Now, the one below it, I think it ties into the same thing, especially in this fake world that we live in. A lot of people, there's a saying that I often use. It's an old Japanese saying that we have 3 faces. We have the face that we show the world, the face that we show our friends and family, and our true face. So it takes people a long time to show their true face. So I think that this second quote ties into that perfectly. Have you ever wondered why a person drastically changes after the honeymoon phase ends in a relationship? One or both parties became comfortable. Possibly. Another possibility is that their representative's time has expired and they couldn't afford the maintenance cost. Live in truth so that you don't have to pay the extra expense of being fake. How many people are in a relationship pretending to not be themselves because they're afraid that the other person won't like them? So they feel that they have to change who they are to be in this relationship. And that's why you have so many unhappy relationships. That's why you have a lot of those. I'm pretty sure you've seen it. Those men sitting out in the car before they go home. You know, like, all right,
Absolutely.
let's
And
get
if
it
I can be
together.
totally honest, I was that guy. You know,
Yeah.
there's parts of me, and what I'm learning through ministry. Ministry really shows you who you really are, the good, the
Mm-hmm.
bad, and the ugly. And certain parts of myself, I was just taking, I'm in the process of also becoming a certified life coach for transforming the way that we think about ourselves so that way we can transform the way that we think about relationships. And so one of the parts was talking about the fact that some of the irrational beliefs that we have come from the need for acceptance, the need for
Mm-hmm.
comfort, and also the need to judge other people. And so I looked at those three areas. I'm like, you know, judging is like, you know, looking down on people because they haven't met your expectations. Acceptance is like, hey, I always have to be this best at everything or else I'm nothing. You know, I'm devalued because I lost or I failed at something. But then the comfort is like nothing in life ever goes wrong. And if something does, it's catastrophic. And they were like, which one of the three areas do you struggle with? And I'm like, maybe comfort, because before ministry, everything was pretty much stable. You know, it was pretty much a straight line. But I realized that I struggle with the need for acceptance. I always wanted to be exactly the way that my parents wanted me to be, a kid that went to college, a kid that never really did anything wrong. And that's why I walked that chalk line. But walking that chalk line, whenever you slip, you're harder on yourself than anybody else can be. And so now that
Yeah.
you're hard on yourself, now you're feeling devalued. Now you're feeling like, hey, wait a second, there's a part of me that's not perfect. Well,
Mm-hmm.
nobody's perfect. There's no
Yeah.
perfect person. And so with that being said, a lot of the times when we look at those spaces, like going back to what you're saying, those three faces that we put on, it's
Mm-hmm.
part of us that we're not willing to deal with within ourselves. So therefore
Yeah.
we project out that, hey, I'm this person, I'm so great, I'm so awesome, check me out, that we
Mm-hmm.
never work on the opportunity areas, and those opportunity areas will come back to haunt us. Because in
Mm-hmm.
relationship, when you're with the right person, they will reflect the good, bad, and ugly about you, and allows you and gives you the opportunity for you to truly heal from those. But you have to take advantage of those opportunities.
Yes. Yes. I'm kind of just breezing through the book. Don't worry, I'm not going to give the whole book away, but this is kind of just showing people a preview
No,
of
this is
why they
good.
care
This
about
is
this book.
great. No, I appreciate it. This is awesome, and it's cool to be able to talk through these posts. So I appreciate it.
Oh, anytime, anytime. This one actually applied to me. Our efforts to change our behavior must exceed the strength of the struggle. How much is it if we're unwilling to take the first step? This one actually correlates to this podcast. You probably know where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
We had a conversation one night, and we were talking, and we normally have conversations like this anyway. So this is for us. This isn't like a podcast. This is just one of our normal conversations.
Right.
And I remember that I was saying, I want to do a podcast one day. And he said, okay, so when are you going to do it? I said, oh, I'll get to it. And I have a habit of being a procrastinator at times. So the next day you called me and said, okay, so when's your first day? I said, what? What are you talking about? When's the first podcast? I don't know. I'll get to it. How's this weekend sound? What? Yeah. You know what? I'll come on. I'll be your first guest. What? And, and if you remember that first episode, everything went wrong.
Yeah.
We couldn't get into Zoom. The lighting was bad. The audio was bad. I was fumbling my questions.
Yeah.
And then we redid it. And now, 11 months later, this podcast has allowed me to interview people around the world, to interview someone that's in prison. It's given me different business opportunities that I never would have thought that I would have had I not just taken that first step. And I think that's often the most difficult thing because of the fear. It's unknown. You fear the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that was exactly it. What I've learned from the journey that I'm taking right now is the strength of, or the importance of, accountability. You have to have somebody that you're held accountable to. We're all accountable or held accountable to something or someone. And so in order for us to change our behavior, we have to embrace the fact that we won't be the best at that, but we can still work to get better. We may not be the best, but we can always work to get better. And so that's what life is all about. Life is all about the challenges that you face and how you respond to those challenges. So you have to be able to have that effort to change your behavior. And it gets a lot easier when you have accountability. And so I'm thankful, man, that you allowed me to be your accountability partner. And I'm just so happy for what you're doing on this platform, man. It's a blessing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oops, hang on. All right. Let me see. Hang on 1 second. This one, if we dwell on the past, we may miss the vision for our bright futures. Have you ever tried to grab an object in front of you with your back facing it? It's impossible. Stay the course. Oof. Yeah. Ooh, that I know that one hit me. But I'm
pretty sure it's hit me now.
Yeah. I mean, it's so easy for us to, there's so much going on in life, and it's so easy to just take our focus off what we're supposed to do because we're looking back at everything else that's going on around us. That at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. It usually doesn't, but it's so easy to get caught up in the drama, the gossip, the bad things that are going on in our lives, the bad things that are going around in the world. If you watch the news for more than 10 minutes, you'll probably go crazy because you'll do this. You'll dwell on everything wrong with the world, and you'll miss what you're supposed to be doing. You'll miss your calling. You'll miss what I think is in front of you.
Right. Exactly. And that's exactly what that post is saying right there in June of 2018, man. I was in a situation where I was beginning to dwell on my past. I was, I was in the process of the Lord had begun to talk to me about specifically how I was going to walk out the calling that he had for my life, talking specifically about relationships. And I'm like, man, I've never been in a successful relationship. What am I going to be able to tell somebody about this? Like, there's nothing I can tell somebody about having a good relationship because I never had one. At that moment, I was single. So I'm like, what am I going to tell them? I was beginning to doubt myself, but I realized that, the mirrors on a car are small for a reason. It allows for us to look behind us, to know what's behind us, to be conscious of the fact, hey, I've been through these bad relationships. But the front of the car is so much clearer, being able to go forward to see what the bright future that God has for us. And sometimes we look at what has been, and we think that those circumstances that we're in are a part of our identity, but our identity is completely separate from that because we now have an identity that's rooted in God, and being able to walk forward. That's the thing that he's wanting us to do. So for us to dwell on the past and concentrate on the past and concentrate who left us and who stood us up and that person that was never here for us in our lives, it only is something that can anchor us to our past, and it'll never free us to be able to springboard into our future. So that post is, as you just read it, man, and I looked at the verse there in Philippians that kind of talks about being able to reach forward or looking forward to what lies ahead is so important. And I hope that anybody who listens to this is encouraged by that.
Definitely. There's another one here, and it's in the same vein. We can make countless reasons not to do something, but it only takes one reason to want to do something and actually do it. Sometimes we can get in our own way. Do you really want it? Sometimes I think that people at times are in love with the idea of doing something, but not the actual work. It's kind of like I'm not going to say a lot of people, but some people, they want to get married just for the wedding. They want the job just for the title, but they don't actually want the work behind it. So they'll talk themselves out of doing what they're supposed to do. They'll come up with a reason. Hey, I want to do this, but this might happen. I want to do this, but this might happen. You can hear 10 no's. You really only need one yes for something to happen. You only need one. But I think sometimes we're afraid of the no's.
We are. And one of the things that I'm starting to see is our ability or our willingness to take a risk is a direct reflection of how we feel about ourselves. And so a lot of the times we will count ourselves out something based upon our abilities. I counted myself out of public speaking because doing something like this used to make me fearful. To the point where I would be stuttering. You weren't with it. I had moved out of the area, James, in the 8th grade, but I remember we had a standardized test where we had a public speaking portion of that. And right in the middle of it, it was like, tell us a time about something that happened in your life. So it wasn't like I had to prepare about it. I didn't have to do preparation, but in the middle of the speech, I blanked out.
Mm-hmm.
I literally stopped and forgot where I was. And I remember looking in the children's face that I was talking to and looking, and they were literally like, is he gonna say something? And
Mm-hmm.
that moment caused me to doubt myself with public speaking for many, many years, up until I got into college, James. So we're talking,
Mm-hmm.
well, the second time I went to college. So we're talking like 15, 20 years, So now it's like, wait a second, this same
Mm-hmm.
thing, the reason why I'm not wanting to accept this calling that God has on my life is because of an eighth grade experience. So
Mm-hmm.
that means there's an eighth grade me that I have to deal with. I have to be able to face it and say, you know what? I was fearful of public speaking. Matter of fact, I am fearful of public speaking. But guess what? That's
Mm-hmm.
all the more reason for God to be able to use me, because it's not me that's being able to boast about the qualities that I have, and I'm this guy, or I'm that guy. I can sit and deal with this fear and say, you know what? This interview right here is going to be able to help somebody right now. And for
Yeah.
me to say no to it, it's going to keep somebody locked in this prison that they feel like they're in, which is in their mind. And so
Mm-hmm.
being able to really deal with that and really face myself and fully love myself, flaws, imperfections, insecurities, and all, has really freed me. And it's a continual process, man. It's something that I'm continually walking through. And I hope that it's encouraging to somebody as well.
Well, it is. Trust and believe it is. Let me see. This one, some people will identify you by what you were, not who you are. Your rear view mirrors are on a car for a reason. As you travel through life, uh, you can see your past and learn from it, but you don't have to make a U-turn. Mm-hmm. I think that this one actually applies to everybody. It really does. I mean, we all have a past. That's something that I always say. We all have a past, and we may not always be proud of that past, but we all have a past. But it was learning experiences. We just don't have to go back to it. We should use it to learn from.
Exactly. And,
Mm-hmm.
and we should also use it to teach others and help others.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the other books that I read that was really impactful was called The Purpose Driven Life. When I first began my absolute journey and began to walk with God, that was one of the books that really helped me. It's by Rick Warren. And the one of the first parts of the book would mess me up because I had been living my life for myself, is that your life is not your own. Your life is not just for you. It's for you to serve other people. And so if I'm in the service of serving, in the mindset of serving other people, I got to get out of my own way. I got to realize that the things that I've been through, much like what I used earlier, with the rear mirrors on your car for a reason. You can see the path and learn from it, but you don't have to make the U-turn. You don't have to go back to that, and you don't have to stay locked in that mindset of saying, "Hey, this unfortunate thing happened to me, and so that's where I stay." You don't have to die there. You can live by helping other people get out of the situations that they're in, because there's other people that's going through the same things that we're going through or have gone through that we can help.
Yeah, I think that we sometimes see people, they'll use your past against you. They'll sit there and say, "Oh, well, you were a drunk, right? Okay. Oh, you were promiscuous, right?" And this is one of my favorites. You're a hypocrite. Don't tell me how to live my life with the way that you were living yours.
Right.
Well, actually, I would rather talk to someone that was living that life. I would rather talk to someone that's been down, been dirty, been in the trenches, because they give the best advice.
Exactly. They'll be able to tell you that this is not a robot. I'm a real person, right? We're on a Zoom and we're streaming this to YouTube, but I'm a real person, I'm a real dude. You know what I mean? Like I'm not this. A lot of the times, especially when you make a tremendous or like a 180 life change from going from east to west, a lot of the times what happens is they think that, oh, you forgot where you came from. Oh yeah, you're talking down to me, but it's really something that I'm encouraging you with, because guess what? I remember how it was to feel like there was no way out, but all I'm giving you is an option to let you know that there's a way out. And that's it.
Yep. All right, let me see. This is from 8/13/18. Again, this is I had spoken with someone this week about this. When are you going to realize that you're damaged and your damage is damaging other people? There's rehabilitation for our damage. But the first step is recognizing that you're damaged. Are you ready to take step one? There were so many people that we speak to about it's kind of like an addict. Mm-hmm. Says, oh, I'm not an addict. I use it every so often. I'm not an addict. Mm-hmm. There's so many people that just aren't willing to admit I'm damaged. Yes, I'm damaged from my past relationship. I'm damaged from my childhood. There's a woman that I was speaking to yesterday, and she's always in a rush to get into a relationship every time. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, what do you want? She said, well, I want to get married. And I said, okay, well, what do you enjoy out of life? She said, well, I want a man that loves God. What else do you want? I want a man that's going to read the Bible and go to church with me. Okay. I know that this is a woman that's going through an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. She's going through molestation. Mm-hmm. And I had to ask herself, have you fixed you yet? Have you taken care of what happened in your life? And she said, oh, well, I'm working on that. But I think that I need to get a man to get myself whole. Mm. But if you're relying on someone else to be whole, you'll never be whole. Because as soon as they leave, they'll take their part right back with them. You have to be strong on your own. So I think this one hits home for a lot of people. We've all seen people that are damaged. And these are usually people that go from relationship to relationship, or they're addicts, or they're toxic people because they're damaged and they're not willing to admit to it.
Absolutely. And if we keep it real, James, we've been those people.
Indeed.
It's hard for us to deal with ourselves. What we're saying today is not, hey, it's easy. You need to get off your stand up and just do this. It's difficult because our society points our fingers at everything else and everyone else as them being the ones that's at fault. When in actuality, when you point forward, there's three fingers pointing back at you. The hardest person that you ever have to deal with is yourself. Mm-hmm. Why do I make the decisions that I've made before? I want a relationship. To your point earlier, I have a relationship, or I want to have a relationship, but I don't know how to go about doing that. You have to know the how. What are the steps that I've taken before that have not worked out? And this is where self-examination comes into play.
Sure.
I want this person. Why do I want this person this particular way? How is this person going to help me in this particular area? How can I help them? We have to look at it from so many different angles other than, I just want to be in a relationship. Because guess what? Once you get to a relationship, you'll begin to figure out that this is not my identity. Just because this person is in a relationship with me doesn't mean that they're a part of my identity. I'm separate. I'm an individual. What do I want out of life? I have to get there first. And I have to be able to deal with myself in my way of thinking and how I make decisions and how I plan first before I can get into getting with somebody else. You got to deal with yourself before you get with somebody else, period.
I remember before you got into the relationship that you're in now, you have been single for a while. And you said that this was a conversation that we had. You said, I was looking for a good woman, but I decided to focus on becoming a good man first.
Yes.
That's the step so many people miss. Be the best you.
Yes.
Whatever you're looking for will come to you. But if you're not ready for it, you're going to lose it. Yep. That's why you have these people that keep saying, well, I don't know why I keep running into all these bad relationships. Well, because you haven't fixed you. There's a part of you that you haven't fixed that's attracting this toxicity. So when you said that, I said, man, it's something that was so simplistic, but it made so much sense.
And that's how the post would come to me, man. It would just be very simplistic. It may be just a few words, and then from there, it's almost like a seed being planted in the ground. It'll start to grow its roots, and then it branches out to, as we're reading right now. Like, to give you an example, so that damaged post that you just read, number 280, it came as just, why don't we deal with the fact that we're damaged? Yeah. And then from there, so sometimes it would come as an idea, and then it would come into a question. Just like, are we ready to take step one? What's step one? Dealing with yourself, which is hard to do, but it's necessary, to your point, because a lot of the times we're thinking that, when we talk about our relational history, we always point our fingers at the other person, but we're the only common denominator.
Yeah.
We got to do the hard work, and we have to realize that some of the times that bad person is us, and we got to be able to work on that.
Yep. Now, this next one, you don't even have to speak on. I think the words will speak for itself. If God does not force you into a relationship with him, what makes you think you should force a man or a woman into one. It's all about will. I just want to take a couple seconds so people can marinate on that. Really, really think about that. Look at how many people that are being forced into relationships, or forced to stay in relationships, whether it be the person using mind games, pity, physical trauma, emotional trauma, abuse, to try to force them to stay into a relationship. It's just nothing that you're supposed to have is forced, and it shouldn't be. So that one, I need people just to marinate on that one. So
I'm marinating on it now because there's certain things that even if we translate it to the things that we want, if we got to really force it, and it's causing for a lot of unnecessary strain, unnecessary stress. It's distracting us from our goals. Is this something that's really for us to have? We got to question. I begin to question every single part of my life as a result of this transformation. And again, notice I'm saying it is a current transformation. I'm not transformed and now I'm talking to people like I know it all. No, as I learn, I'm just sharing with everybody with what I've learned. And this book is a portion of what I've learned. It's prepared me to be the best version of me. And it's my encouragement to other people before you try to get into a relationship and before you try to present yourself as a person that's completely whole. There's a process that you have to go through and be willing to submit to, and that's through developing your relationship with God. Without a relationship with Him, these things are not possible.
Yeah. All right, last one. I know we've gone through a few of these, so I thank you for even just bearing with me. Last one. This is the last one. What are you doing to stimulate your mind beside gossip and reality shows? Whew. A lot of people aren't doing that. I'm not going to say a lot, but there's people that aren't. They're being caught up in everything except what they're supposed to be caught up in. They're doing everything but their purpose. So, that's
and actually, honestly, that one, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just thinking as with that one, that was really an idea that dropped in my head because probably about a week after that was my very first he said, she said discussion, because he said, she said it wasn't a ministry at first. It was literally a discussion in my living room. We had the discussion probably within a week after that post. It was like, what am I doing to stimulate my mind and prepare myself for these types of things besides just aimlessly watching television? A lot of the times when we say that we don't have time for something is that we haven't made enough time for it. We haven't made it a priority. What are the boundaries? What are the hurdles that I have to go through mentally in order for me to be able to get in a place to be able to even be knowledgeable about these types of things? What books am I reading? What am I feeding my mind? What am I feeding it through my ears and my eyes? What music am I listening to? You mentioned earlier about the news. What am I watching? It's not. It's one thing to be informed, but it's also another thing to be overwhelmed by someone's agenda. So just being well balanced is very important, and being able to examine yourself or have other people, again, talking about community, having people that can come in and examine you and lovingly help you become the best person is so important.
Yeah. And you know what? I lied. There's one more that I want to cover. It's the one at the very top.
Okay.
And this one, especially, I think this applies to relationships. It applies to church. It applies to life. Pedestals are for roses, not people. That, I think it's like they say it loud for the people in the back, because there's a lot of people that are putting these people on these pedestals, whether it be these reality TV stars. This guy, Derek Jackson, that I've recently been introduced to, or this guy, Kevin Samuels, that everyone is talking about, or even your local church, your pastor. People are putting individuals on these pedestals that don't need to be there. People need to learn how to elevate themselves.
Yeah.
This one is super, super, super important. And to me personally, that's my favorite one.
And if you think about it, and I'm thinking about this whole pedestal analogy, it's like if I find myself looking up to someone, and I don't think it's wrong to be able to, look at someone like, hey, they're inspirational, but to idolize where they are it'll look like it's so far off that I can never achieve anything. And so I'm so focused on looking up to this person, looking out to what they're doing, that I'm not even focused on the lane that I have in front of me. I'm
Yeah.
looking left, I'm looking right, but it's like a person that's running a race and you're running around a track. They have lanes for a particular reason. You have to stay in your lane in order to win the race that you're running, not looking at the other runners. If you look at the other runners, you may stop running. If you look at how fast they're going, you're like, man, I'll never catch up. But the slow and the steady always win the race. So we have to be able to not just look up to people. We have to look to ourselves and say, hey, what actions can I take to be better? And that can become very disruptive if we're paying attention so much to other people's lives that we forget about our own.
Definitely. Whew. This book is just it's so good. It's so inspirational. I mean, there's times when I'll go back and look at certain verses or certain quotes. So you know what? Let me double check that, because that might apply to something in my life. And I think that a lot of other people can benefit from this book. So I'm actually going to put the book back up. If people wanted to buy this book, how can they?
They can go to Amazon. The book is available now on Amazon.com. If you type in my name, Joseph Hogue III, it's in the box. It's also James shared it, the cover of the book so eloquently. If you type in Joseph Hogue III, my name will pop up. You'll see the book, and you can click to buy. It's available in the ebook and paperback format, and it's available now.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my 5 copies, bro.
I got you, man. Amazon. I was on the phone with them a little earlier today, man. They're saying that there's a delay with, and what James is referring to is the autographed copy. I've sold a limited edition of autographed copies, and as they're coming in, I'm handing them out or mailing them out to people that ordered during that limited time. But for those that just want to outright buy the book, please go to Amazon.com. The limited autograph copy was literally a limited time only, so I'm just waiting to fulfill the orders that were previously placed. But if you want the book, go to Amazon.com and you'll be able to get the book.
Definitely. Oh, man, I can't tell you how proud I am of you for doing this. I genuinely mean that. When you told me that book was out, I was probably more excited than you were. So then when I saw the book cover, I said, yes, the book's out. And we had a conversation. I said, dude, as soon as it comes out, you're coming back on the show. We're going to push this thing like crazy. And then when I read it, I said, this book's actually good. Sometimes when you have a friend, you're like, oh, let me just support. Yeah. But then I read it, this book is really good. Like it's a genuinely good book. And, I'm so proud of just, again, where you've come from and where you are, and especially where you're going. Again, we're 2 dudes that grew up in Irvington, New Jersey, and not the greatest parts of town. And, I see where you are now, and I see how you're helping people. And I couldn't be more proud. I really could.
I thank you, man. And I thank you, brother, for saying that, because, again, how this story started, how it started. Yeah. It just because it started a certain way, just some encouragement to somebody. It doesn't have to mean that it's going to end that way. You get to define how you end that story. Now, there's some of the uncontrollable things that you were in your environments growing up. You didn't have any control over that. But right now, you have the opportunity to be able to make that change. And what this book will do is it will challenge you in certain areas for you to make those changes. And that's really it, man. I appreciate you allowing me to come on your show. You're a man of your word, because, again, you did say that. You said when the book's coming out, you're going to come back on the show. And, man, I appreciate you taking the time and bringing me on. And I appreciate the audience for listening as well.
Definitely. This is what's your 3rd time, 4th time? You're like a regular now.
This is my 3rd time. Yeah.
This is your 3rd time being on the show. So, it's great. Once again, congratulations to you and Courtney on your engagement.
Thank you.
I'm very, very excited for that. So here's the question. You've got your book, you've got your ministry. What's next? What are you working on next?
That's a really good question. I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. I'm currently working to become a certified life coach. I want to be able to help our ministry, and even people who are not currently a part of our ministry, be able to transform the way that they think. Because if we keep the same mindsets and we're wanting different outcomes, it's not possible. You have to be able to transform the way that you think, the way that you view yourself, the way that you view the situations that you're in, and be able to make better decisions going forward with the information that you're able to do. So I want to be able to help people walking alongside them, side by side, creating customized plans for them to be able to come and us be able to work together as a team. It's not me showing you and you're just sitting there. It's active participation where you're ingrained in the process and you're also submitting to the process, and I'm holding you accountable, and we're also holding each other accountable to get to the goal that you want in your life, and as it relates to relationships and also being the best version of yourself.
Okay. Dude, as always, if there's anything that I can ever do to help you with that process, you already know. I'm a phone call away. Now, what if people want to get in contact with you, or they're interested in your ministry, or, seeing any of your messages? How can people reach out to you?
They can go to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is very simple. It's in my name, Joseph Hogue III. You can see some of the videos that I've delivered. You can also see ways to connect with our ministry as well. Again, we're a ministry. We call each other family. And because we affect you, there's some people that's on here now that's connected to the ministry as well. So I appreciate family, y'all coming out to support. It's just a way for us to be able to not just always just talk about relationships, but we also fellowship together. So it's an opportunity for us to do that. So to find ways to connect with us, you can visit my YouTube channel, and below the videos, you'll be able to see the contact information and ways to connect with us. We'd love to have you at some of our events that's coming up. We have some events that's coming up soon. So just stay tuned and check us out. And while you're at the YouTube channel, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel as well. We want to be able to continue to build that platform out as well.
And share the videos as well.
Share.
Definitely. So before we go, I'm going to open it up for Q&A in case anyone has any questions or comments. Okay. There's a few people here that are new. So in order to keep order, if you have a question or comment, your first option is to use the hand raise option. There's 3 dots on either the top or bottom of your screen that say more. Once you hit the more button, there should be an option there to raise hand. You can press that. If that doesn't work, you can type your question in the chat. If all else fails, you can take yourself off of mute. Let me know that you have a question or a comment, and I'll acknowledge you so that you'll get a chance to read your question. So before we go, does anyone have any questions, comments? Anyone like to speak on what we've covered today? I know I sounded like a teacher, but
you are a teacher, though, man. You're people that those people that you covered so far, they're human as well, just like everybody else. So I appreciate you doing that as well. You humanize people on this platform, and that's amazing.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. Let me see. All right, looks like so far there's no hands. Looks like you may have answered every question. So this is actually, I know this is a little off script. I actually have 2 friends on here that Joe and I went to elementary school with, and I have not seen them in probably 15 years. So Bejna and Bejnata, I'm happy to see you, even though it's a black screen, but they twin.
Of course.
Yeah, wow.
It is important.
Definitely. We appreciate you being here.
It was awesome meeting. I loved it. I'm definitely going to go get the book right away because you touched some points that really resonated with me personally. So I'm definitely going to go for the book and read it. You guys are doing an amazing job.
Thank you, Bejna. That's cool. I haven't seen your name or heard your name in like 25 years. So it's good to hear your voice and also see the names, you and your sister. So thank you for your support. Thank you so much.
I'm proud.
What'd you say?
I said it was amazing to see you guys. I'm so proud.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you.
If people don't understand, like Bejna and Bejnata, they know our parents. I think that I was in the second Bejna. I've known Bejna and Bejnata since the 2nd grade, I believe.
Wow. 2nd
or 3rd grade. So yeah, it's good. It's definitely good to see you all, as well as the other people that have supported and come out today. So I really, really appreciate you all for coming out today. For a couple of you, I know this is your first show. For those that are returning, I appreciate you as always. If you're new to this show, please like and subscribe to the Fall to Rise YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, the social media page, because we cover a lot of different topics that most people are afraid to talk about. As Joe said, I try to humanize people. I cover the taboo subjects. I've covered molestation, racial identity. I've covered domestic violence, suicide, depression, finance, Joe's journey through abstinence. I even interviewed a friend of mine that's a black vampire. You have to see the episode. It's interesting. But she's a very good friend of mine. So again, please like and subscribe to it's Fall to Rise podcast, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook pages. We have a lot of exclusive content that's coming. I can't really speak on it too much yet, but it's coming very, very soon. Also, I'm on another podcast called the Extreme Truth Podcast. I'm actually trying to pull up the flyer right now. That one's similar to this one. It's myself along with my co-host, Legend Damian Simmons and James the Icon Grant. And we cover everything from current events, social topics. Only difference with that one, viewer discretion is advised. So you might not want to have the kiddies around when we're watching that episode, but we cover a lot of different things that people are afraid to discuss. So this Monday, we have an interesting topic. We're going to discuss the media portrayal of Black people. Is it that the media is portraying us in a negative light or looking for the negativity, or is it an example of our imitating life? Are we starting to adopt those stereotypes ourselves? So we're definitely going to discuss it this Monday. So please, please, please come on out Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is the same Zoom link. It is 806-930-0961. Please feel free to like and subscribe to the Extreme Truth podcast channel as well, because we've covered a lot of things on that. We've covered masculinity versus toxic masculinity. We've covered betrayal. Again, as I've stated earlier, this past Monday's topic was about being stuck. You know, whether it be your relationship, your living situation, friendships, you know, your jobs, you know, what's keeping you there and how you get out. So we cover a lot of different topics. So again, please like and subscribe to the Extreme Truth Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channels. It's XTREME Truth Podcast. Wow. My friends already started following me. All right. All right. Definitely, definitely. But once again, I want to thank my guest, Joe. Joseph Hogue the third. You know, again, this is my brother right here. So we talk about this. So once again, Joe, I really want to thank you for coming back on again. I wish you much, much, much continued success. I'm still waiting on my 5 copies, but
I'll get them to you as soon as I can, man. As soon as I can, they're coming your way. They'll be signed and autographed.
Thank you, thank you. And again, everyone, please, please, please buy this book. It is a very good book. It may help you through some difficult times. So, Joe, thanks again, and continue to be blessed, man. Continue to do the work that you're doing. It's definitely necessary. Definitely. And thank you. And for those of you that are tuning in, I really, really appreciate you for coming on. I appreciate your continued support. And we're going to continue to put the content out that you're looking for. If there are things that you want us to discuss, there is no topic that we are afraid to discuss. Legitimately, there is no topic. So feel free to reach out to us. You know, we've given us social media, the Fall to Rise podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and then Extreme Truth podcast, YouTube, Instagram, and social media pages. So once again, I'm your host, James Brown. Thanks for tuning in.